Okay, so we're going to talk about how to bring in an existing i3d into a map folder. So we're in our map, go maps, in this case new models. We want to create a new folder to put this model in, a new Quonset. Open that up. All right, so this is a sample that I'm going to use just for the purposes of showing how to transfer files. This is not the best mod itself in the world. It was made before some of the FS19 got completely functional. However, it's structured beautifully. In the next example, I'm going to show you one that isn't structured well. So the structure shows that all these different mods use the shaders, the shared, and the textures folders. So whether we want one of these or several of these mods that are included in this package, we need to get those three folders at least. In this case, we're also going to get the Quonset i3d. So we can get the Quonset hut. We need its shapes folder and its XML. Drag those over into your new file folder. Okay, we're going to go back to maps and open our map i3d. Okay, so here we are. So we're going to create a new transform group. Okay, there's a transform group. We need to rename it. Okay, so there it is. Now we're going to pull in our model. So we're going back to new models, a new Quonset. I'm going to drag the i3d file in. Okay, so here it is. It brought in itself and two lights. Now, in this case, the lights are actually part of the model. Sometimes they're not. But in this case, we need those. So we're going to select the Quonset hut and its two lights. We're going to do Control X. And then in order to put them in this transform group, we're going to select the transform group and do Control V. Okay, so now, under new Quonset hut, we have all this stuff bunched together. So this is at transform position 0000. It's tied to the center of the map. No matter where we move this transform group, now it'll always, if we use this one to drag it around, it'll always start at the center of the map. All right, so this has all the stuff down in it that it brought in. Okay, so to bring it into the location I want, I'm going to hit Control B for interactive placement. I'm going to click on the map where I want it, and voila, there it is. Okay, now, in this instance, like I said, this building is not 100% functional. It's using FS19 shaders that were not correctly brought in from FS17. The doors right now are not operational as well because at the time that this mod was created, they hadn't brought in the animated objects into beta 1.2. But for the purposes of just bringing in a folder, it shows you what it is. And you can see that the shaders and the textures and its MIPS kind of change as you go in and out, and the textures change. But functionally, we now have this in to our map. Okay, so now let's talk about a less structured file. All right, this happens to be the MWHOF. And it has a lot of things intermixed between the shareds and individual. And it takes some investigative work to get these done, and that's not the purpose of this video. A lot of times you can tell from the errors, but for sure you know that you need the shaders, the shared, the sounds, and the textures. Now, you may need building decals, probably because they're going to be everywhere. You may need residential windows. Okay, so let's go down and say that we were going to pick Cow Barn A. So we're going to need Cow Barn A's i3d, its shapes, and its XML for sure. Now we can tell from the names that we're also going to need some of these other DDSs. Now there may be other ones that we may need. We can tell either from the errors when we try to load it or by going in and actually opening up the XML after it's been brought in. Okay, so let's go back to our new models. So we're going to go back to new models. I'm going to create new folder. Call it a new HOF, just for grins. Open that up. And I'm going to need those 15 files at the very least. And so that is how you set up your file structure in order to start bringing in things successfully. And that way it has the i3d, it has its shapes file, it has its XML that it can call, it has the shared content up here. And again, using this one as a kind of a mixed directory structure, not as clean as the first example, you have some other DDS files that need to be brought over. Again, a lot of times you actually have to open this up, see what all it calls to be able to figure that out. So a lot of times you have to bring this up to see what all it calls and to be able to bring this up. All right, so here you can see that there's a bunch of other textures that you're going to be missing. So you need to pull all of these in. Those textures need to reside in your final game. So you may not want to pull in every single texture that's over in this window, because some of them may not be used and you'd be bloating your final map. So you have to do a little bit of investigative work to see which ones need brought in. Just open up this in Notepad++, go down through, pull over all the appropriate textures over in here. Then you can just pull this i3d into the game, and voila, if it's actually made for FS19, if it's actually meant to be brought in, if its shaders are correct, you're up and running with a file. I know that's a lot of ifs, but as we get further into the FS19 era, all of the new ones will probably be built to bring in. These couple of examples were early on in their release, and so they may not be 100%. All right, so that is how to structure your files in order to bring these things in.